So bab 7 talks about how we eventually reach independence. So before that, we have to know about the background, the latar belakang on how we got there. So firstly, it started with the formation of Kesatuan Melayu Muda or KMM. And KMM was led by Ibrahim Yadi Yaakob, and he was the main person who was trying to give independence to Tanah Melayu through concept Melayu Raya. So if you don't know already, Melayu Raya means Malaysia plus Indonesia. And a lot of these parties had this Melayu Raya concept in mind when they are fighting, like PKMM and a few others. But as we all know, Indonesia got independence first. So all of the Melayu Raya parties felt at what they wanted to do. So next was PKMM. So Parti Kebangsaan Melayu Melaya was led by Dr. Burhanuddin Al-Helmi, Ishak Haji Muhammad, and Ahmed Bostamam. So you've seen these names a lot already. And they also tried to fight through concept Melayu Raya. API, Angkatan Pemuda Insaf, was led by Ahmed Bostamam. So it's basically a side party, I guess. Like or maybe after, like Ahmed Bostamam was quite active as a person who was fighting for independence. And the slogan that API used was Merdeka dengan Darah. However, they were too radical. Because their message was like, their intentions were, we will be nice until we don't want to be nice anymore, and we'll use our aggression. So that is considered radical, and they became illegal. After that, in the same year, PKMS was formed, and PKMS was led by Dato' Patinggi Abang Haji Abdullah, and he was the one who tried to fight against giving away Sarawak to British. If you remember, the last chapter, not the last chapter, the Malayan Union one, I think it was. Was it the Malayan? Yeah, I think it was the Malayan Union one. The one where he mentioned that the one where Vyner Brooke gave away his territory to British. PKMS was made during that time. And that's because they remember that they want to be independent, and in Perlembagaan 1941, it was already mentioned that they will slowly become independent. So yeah, that's why. If you don't remember, go and watch the last video. Next was PPM. So PPM was in Cebu, and they were also in the same year. And they also had the same reason why they were formed, which was because they didn't like how British was just taking away what was supposed to be their eventual freedom. And some of the PPM members formed Rukun 13. And if you remember Rukun 13, they were the ones who killed Duncan Stewart. Again, look at the last chapter, a few chapters ago. And then everyone knows UMNO. UMNO was first led by Dr. On Jaafar before Tunku Abdul Rahman took over. And they are a Malay party, and the slogan was Hidup Melayu. And their fight is to protect the status quo, the special rights of orang Melayu, and also to try and redeem the status of Raja-Raja Melayu. Next page. In the same year, there was also PKML and MIC. So PKML, if you remember correctly, it was formed during the time where Sabah was given away by I think SBUB to British, and yeah, similar to Sarawak lah. And the slogan was Hidup Melayu Merdeka. And as you all know, PKML's members were brought to other places, and that's why they eventually dissolved. And then MIC was formed by Jom Taivi, and MIC was different from other parties, where they weren't actually fighting for independence for themselves. They were fighting with other parties, with other kaum, for independence. So eventually they ended up working with MIC. Eventually they ended up working with UMNO. Hizbul Muslimin was formed a year later, and it is a more Islamic party, and they want to fight for the independence of Tanah Melayu as an Islamic country, because it was predominantly Muslim. I mean, Tanah Melayu was predominantly Muslim, but British didn't like how they were approaching it. Maybe they didn't like how they weren't a big fan of Islam, so they made Hizbul Muslimin legal. If you remember with the last chapter about how they were Perlembagaan Rakyat API, Hizbul Muslimin and PKMM were part of it, if I remember correctly. MCA was formed after the Darurat issue began, and the reason why was because Tan Cheng Lock wanted to form a country that is peaceful, that has people that can work together instead of people who are split up according to race. They are, similarly to MIC, they are more towards working together with other parties to achieve independence. And then in 1951, after PTM, there was PAS, and PAS is also an Islamic party, but by that time, I'm not so sure on why British made Hizbul Muslimin illegal but not PAS. However, PAS is an Islamic party, and they also want to fight for. I mean, they were first fighting for having a country and one race, similar to Indonesia, where all of the people are Indonesian regardless of race. Like, in Malaysia, our nationality is Malaysian, but we have different races. In Indonesia, they have to change the names to Indonesian names even though they're Chinese. So PAS wanted that as well. And they want also, similarly to Hizbul Muslimin, they wanted an Islamic country. And then IMP is quite the opposite, where it's more towards all races working together under one party. So or Tanah Melayu untuk Malayan. And they wanted more, and compared to other parties where they are fighting for race, IMP is fighting for people, like all people. And they said that you cannot get independence without other races working with you. So next is CLC, and I'm gonna expect CLC to come out because the last few chapters mention CLC a lot. So CLC, in Malay, it's known as Jawatan Kuasa Hubungan Antara Kaum, was formed, and your objective was and they are comprised mengandungi ahli-ahli yang terdiri daripada berbagai kaum. So they are comprised of people from multiple races. And the objective is to, number one, mengkaji hubungan kaum secara mendalam. Number two, membetulkan keadaan politik, ekonomi dan sosial supaya mewujud pembahagian yang adil untuk semua komuniti. And number three, mewujudkan keadaan harmoni dan muhibah dalam kalangan penduduk di negara ini. So, firstly, study the relationships between races. Number two, try and make the situation better. And number three, make everyone work together. So your motto was kesamaan dan keadilan untuk penduduk tanah Melayu. I think if this is 4 marks, you have to include the motto as well. So these are the members. You don't really have to know the names of the members. You have to know that there is an advisor, there is a chairman, pengurusi. So penasihat is Malcolm MacDonald, pengurusi is Isi Turaisingam. And then you have to know that there is Wakil Melayu, China and India representing, not India, other races. So there's penasihat, pengurusi, Wakil Melayu, Wakil China and Wakil lain, ahli lain. So there is European representative, there is Indian representative, and there's Serani representative, which I think is orang asli. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. Next is what is the peranan? What is the job? What is CLC supposed to do? So they have to handle certain issues. I'm going to close this because it's double pages, and hope that you guys can see it. Let me see if I can find any. Oh, here. Okay. Oops, wrong one. Okay. So what should CLC do? Firstly, they have to handle the political issue, which is they want to get ready for independence, persediaan ke arah berkerajaan sendiri. So to do this, CLC needs to mencadangkan peralihan ke arah kerajaan sendiri dilakukan dengan memberikan pengalaman pilihan raya. So what is the issue? They want to have independence. What is the solution? They need to have elections. So the function of CLC in this case is to suggest a way to transition to mengalih, try to slowly move towards independence, because you cannot really become independent like immediately, right? You need to have experience with taking over your own country before you can become independent. Because if you are under British for a very long time and then you become independent suddenly, like without knowing how to take care of a country, the country is gonna go to shit. So to do that, to not have that happen, British will give you chance to take over your own country first, with British taking over you, because British knows how to take over a country, right? And then after a while, when British is like, okay, I think you guys can do it now, then British will give independence, then you will become a country. So that's why the solution to that is through election, so that people can get used to choosing their own leader. Next issue is about kedudukan istimewa orang Melayu. So orang Melayu menuntut diperakui kedudukan istimewa sebagai penduduk asal rantau Alam Melayu. So the issue here is that the Malays want to have their special rights, because remember that the Malays were here for a very long time. So what is the peranan? The peranan is to agree that orang Melayu should have these special rights, and because they have been here for a very long time, and they already have proven that they love this territory, that they love this place. So what is the effect? The special rights of orang Melayu were recognized. So orang Melayu have the special rights. However, the other races that were already here, they still have their rights maintained. Like it's not like there's no like racial discrimination. Well, at least that's not supposed to be in Tanah Melayu. So instead, we have orang Melayu who have been here for a very long time and should get the rights they deserve. However, everyone else here can live here and become one of us. So kedudukan istimewa orang Melayu dan diperakui, dan kepentingan kaum lain diiktiraf. Next is the next issue is about economy, because orang Melayu tidak memperoleh peluang yang sama seperti kaum bukan Melayu dalam sektor perniagaan dan perusahaan. So what this means is the Malays, they don't really have the same opportunities to get involved in economics as other races like Indian and Chinese. The reason why is because when British took over Tanah Melayu, most of the Malays were in villages, and British brought in people from other countries to invest in Tanah Melayu in cities. But the Malays didn't really get to move to the cities. So this causes the other races to be more advanced because they are in cities, while the Malays who are in villages are left behind. So how did they get over this? The CLC decided to suggest making an agency to get more Malays to be involved in economy and education. So the effect, they formed RIDA after Dato' Jafar suggested to form this agency. So the agency is called RIDA, and RIDA's function is again to get people to involve themselves in economic and education. So beliau berpendapat bahawa bantuan ekonomi dan kemajuan luar bandar perlu sebagai tolak ansur terhadap persetujuan orang Melayu melonggarkan syarat kewarganegaraan kepada kaum bukan Melayu. So what Dato' Jafar is saying is, since we already made it easier for you to become citizens after what happened in the Darurat stuff, and also because we still accept your rights even though orang Melayu has special rights, as a token of appreciation, you should help us get involved in economics and education. And then next is kewarganegaraan bukan Melayu. So this one correlates to this as well. So the issue here is orang Melayu don't really want to give citizenship to orang bukan Melayu so easily. Like, because back then there were many people who just recently moved to Tanah Melayu from China, from India, and orang Melayu weren't so comfortable with making them Malayans. So what did CLC do? CLC said that we are going to give them independence because we want them to be part of us. We want them to respect. We want them to show their uttermost respect. We want them to menunjukkan taat setia kepada tanah Melayu, and also we want them to work together with us, because if we don't give them citizenship, they might hate us and things will go bad. So what did they do? They made it easier to apply for citizenship, and this so that number one, orang bukan Melayu will feel more loved in this country, and number two, they can be more involved in doing things in this country, like politics. As you can see here, memberikan kedudukan politik kepada kaum bukan Melayu dan melahirkan semangat patriotik serta bertanggungjawab kepada negara. So they have more say in politics, where so like Chinese people can run for elections and Chinese people can vote for them and so on. And lastly is pendidikan. So the reason why pendidikan is an issue is because if you remember correctly, British had this vernacular system where there are some schools that use Chinese, some schools that use BM, some schools that use Indian, and British didn't do anything about it. So this causes multiple systems. Sistem persekolahan yang berbeza-beza mengikut kaum, menggunakan bahasa mengantar buku teks dan sukatan yang berlainan. They use different languages to talk, they use different textbooks, and they use different syllabus. So how did they solve this? They suggested a more equal education system, which that helps with getting everyone on the same book, getting everyone on the same track. So what is the solution? They formed the committee for education, and their function is to try and see what they can do to make the education system better, make the education system more formal. Seragam means uniform, a more uniform education system. So like instead of Chinese schools learning things from China, Indian schools learning things from India, Malay schools learning things about KMM and so on. Kesultanan Melayu Melaka, I mean, instead of us learning different things, we are all learning under the same syllabus: KSSM, KSSR, KBSM, KBSR, and all those stuff. Okay, so next we're gonna go back to the presentation mode, and it talks about Sistem Ahli. So basically, Sistem Ahli is a way for the people in the penduduk tempatan to have experience in trying to take care of a country. So the reason why they gave us experience is because number one, British is trying to give us independence anyway through dasar dekolonisasi, and number two is that there was not enough people to take over. Kekurangan pegawai tempatan. So Dato' Onn Jaafar, who was already in the government, he asked that orang tempatan should be given a chance as well. Local people should be given a chance as well to give Tanah Melayu independence. So what is his suggestion? So after he suggested that there's not enough people, so we should give others a chance, and then the British said, oh yeah, we have to let you guys go anyway, so you can do that. So that's how Sistem Ahli is formed. So firstly, Sir Henry Gunny announced the Sistem Ahli members, and the members are here: Dato' Onn Jaafar, E.C. Thuraisinggam, Lee Tiang Keng, Tunku Yaakob bin Sultan Abdul Hamid, Dato' Mahmud Mat. These three are added later. So Sistem Ahli is a system that trains local people to take over the governing of Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. And some of the MBP members, if you remember MBP from the last few chapters, they were given responsibilities to take over certain boards, certain ministries. So like for example, Dr. Onn Jaafar is in charge of outside affairs. E.C. Thuraisinggam is in charge of education. Lee Tiang Keng is in charge of health. So yeah. And then Sistem Ahli memberikan latihan kepada penduduk tempatan berkaitan dengan pentadbiran negeri sebelum British memberikan kemerdekaan. Again, as I repeat multiple times, Sistem Ahli is done to let the British train the local people to know how to take over a country before British gives it independence. So so this Sistem Ahli went for 4 years, from 1951 to 1955, and in 1954 there were a few extra portfolios, a few extra ministries added, which are Kerajaan Tempatan Perumahan dan Perancang Bandar, Pengangkutan dan Ahli Bumi, led by Dr. Ahmad Kamil, H.S. Lee, and Dr. Asmaul Abdul Rahman. So so other than these ministries, there were three more. Hal ehwal economy, so economic matters. Perindustrian dan berhubungan sosial, so that's like roadworks, I think, railroads, roads and stuff. And then housing, perubahan dan kerja raya. So those three are under British. Everything else is under local people. So Sistem Ahli was there for 4 years, and then after 4 years, in June 1955, they dissolved. We call it dissolve. Sistem Ahli. So the reason why they did that is because they want to make way for elections. Because you don't want them to stay, because you're going to choose people for your new government. So Sistem Ahli will not be useful anymore because you want to change the ministry. You want to change the people who are taking over the government through elections. So what is the ciri-ciri, the characteristics? Firstly, Ahli Batara Menteri. So the members are ministers and they take over ministries. And then I forgot what's the correct word for jabatan. Department. Jabatan means department. Portfolio is just portfolio. Menteri is minister, and ministry is kementerian. So these ministers are in charge of taking care of their departments, or as we know them today as ministries. And then the people are chosen by Pesuruhjaya Tinggi British. Back then there was no elections, so it was Sir Henry Gurney who chose them instead. And remember that this is BTM, so before Sir Henry Gurney can actually choose them, the British Raja have to agree on whether to choose them or not. And then these members are in charge of suggesting laws. And then after they suggested a law, they can bring it to MPP, Majlis Perundangan dan Persekutuan, and discuss it there. And then these four are still under Sir Henry Gurney. Or after that, Sir Gerald Templer, after Sir Henry Gurney died. And then a cabinet system is a Sistem Ahli is like a cabinet made out of multiple leaders. So it's not an actual cabinet, but it acts like a cabinet anyway. So what I mean by it doesn't act like an actual cabinet is because it's that it isn't like nowadays where you have a ministry, you have a prime minister, and he's officially taking over the other ministries. This one is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, I think? 8, sorry, 8. So there's only 8 categories. There's 8 departments, but all of them are technically under one. So that is why it's a shadow ministry, cabinet bayangan, a shadow cabinet. So here is what Dr. Onn Jaafar has to do. You might need to be careful about this, like what they might ask about this. I think they'll ask about Sistem Ahli's ciri-ciri as well as CLC. But in case they ask about Dr. Onn Jaafar, you can just look at this. Hak ehwal imigran, penyiaran dan percetakan, hubungan negeri Melayu dengan negeri Selat, hak ehwal menunaikan haji, pendaftaran kerakyatan, kahwinan dan kematian. So these are more all these are inside country matters. I think I said outside country matters, so it's inside matters. So my bad on that. So what does he have to handle? He has to handle immigrants. He has to handle media. He has to handle relationship with NNS, because NNS comprise of Pulau Pinang, Malacca and Singapore. So they want to make sure that they don't become angry with Singapore. Hal ehwal menunaikan haji, because Tanah Melayu is majority Muslim, so a lot of people are going for haji. And then a citizenship, marriage and death. And Rida, remember that he formed Rida. So Rida is also under him, as well as a few other ministries. So why is Sistem Ahli so important? Number one, as I always say, it is a stepping stone towards preparing for independence, because Sistem Ahli is done to train people for independence. Number two, memberikan pendedahan kepada penduduk tempatan untuk belajar, mentadbir dan menerajui kerajaan kemerdekaan. So this one is to train people for independence. This one is to teach. This one is to give exposure, because just training and giving exposure is different. Training is you teach them how to do it. Giving exposure is letting them do it by themselves and see what they do. So that's number two. Number three is proses memupuk perpaduan kaum, kerana ahlinya terdiri daripada gabungan pemimpin berbagai kaum. So this helps with getting all of us to work together as one country, one territory, instead of multiple races. And then menentukan kemerdekaan yang mendapat sokongan seluruh penduduk Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. So the last one is to convince people to support Tanah Melayu, because if your system actually doesn't work well, people won't trust you to take over a country. Next is sistem pendidikan kebangsaan. So remember, back then we have vernacular schools. We still do now with SJKC and SJKT, but back then it was way more separated. It was way more divisive lah. And this vernacular system, where people use different languages, use different syllabus, it causes a lot of differences between multiple races. It causes us to not understand each other that well. So it menghalang usaha menyatupadukan rakyat. It blocks the road to uniting everyone together as one race, one country. So how did they slowly get to a good education system? So firstly, it was Laporan Barnes. So wait. Yeah, so firstly there was the Barnes report, Laporan Barnes, and Laporan Barnes prioritized on having primary schools, because back then people didn't really get education, and if they do, they just went to secondary and then went to uni. So this one gave more focus to primary schools, so people can get to know each other even better, and they are more and they get to know the country better. So what did Laporan Barnes talk about? It mentioned that Malay or English is the main main language of communication, while secondary schools use English, because remember, it's still under British kan. We're still under British. Next is Fen Wu. So after the Chinese people looked at Laporan Barnes, they are like, we need to, I mean, like what they say is what they say is we cannot go to English or BM speaking schools, because we need to protect our own language, which is Chinese. So what they suggested instead is we will make Chinese schools still Chinese, but we will make it based on Tanah Melayu, so that we are able to preserve our language, but we are also able to contribute to society. So what did they suggest? Chinese schools are maintained, but they're under the country system, and their syllabus is based on Tanah Melayu. So after Fen Wu, there was Ordinan Pelajaran. So Ordinan Pelajaran basically looked at both Barnes and Fen Wu, and Ordinan Pelajaran is to have a education system that uses BM as the main language of communication. So yeah, and then it's both BM and English, because bahasa rasmi persekutuan back then was BM and English. So all students, no matter what race you are all in the same school. I mean, you're all in the same syllabus. However, you can still learn in your own languages. So what are the suggestions of Ordinan Pelajaran? Number one, Tanah Melayu has two types of primary schools. Number one is Malay. Number two is English. Malay schools and English schools. But then Chinese and Tamil are taught as extra subjects in case there are more than 15 students of that race in the school. And number three, sekolah menengah menggunakan English sebagai bahasa pengantar. So English is still the secondary school language, secondary school language of communication. And then Woodhead decided to look more in Sabah and Sarawak, because Sabah and Sarawak and Tanah Melayu are different. This is more towards Tanah Melayu. This is more towards Sabah and Sarawak. So Sabah and Sarawak's suggestions were, Woodhead's suggestions were, try and strengthen the system in sekolah menengah and rendah, and then focus on English, because unlike Tanah Melayu, Sabah and Sarawak aren't actually all Malay. So there are many Bumiputras, so, and they all have their own languages. So instead of having BM as the main language, which is unfair because they don't know BM, we have English as the main language instead. And then sistem pembiayaan pendidikan yang teratur. So it's just I think this is a scholarship. So it's easier for people to get into schools. So based on Woodhead, so after people look at Woodhead, in Sarawak, they decided to have these things implemented. So and these no, sorry, not implemented. I mean like, based on Woodhead, there were a few suggestions for Sarawak system, which is having an English school, but any race everyone can join. Mewujudkan sekolah menengah berbilang kaum dengan menggunakan bahasa Inggeris sebagai bahasa pengantar. So it is an English school, but people from many races can join. And menyeragamkan sukatan pelajaran dan peperiksaan. Have a syllabus, because back then they have no syllabus. Number 3, there are textbooks based on Sarawak culture, unsur tempatan, and getting civic education teach formally. So civic education is more like some things that you can do like in work. I think I'm not so educated on civic education, so correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, some Sarawak suggestions are we will have English schools, anyone can join. We will have a syllabus. We will have textbooks based on Sarawak, and we will have civic education. For Sabah, since Sabah had a lot of Chinese people, as we all know, there will be Malay school. There will be more Malay and English in Chinese schools, and there will be more English in Malay schools, and there will be more Malay in English schools, and then they will have exams being in English, like for sekolah menengah. So again, Chinese schools will learn BM and English more. BM schools will learn English more. English schools will learn BM more, and the syllabus in secondary is all English. And then after Woodhead, there was Colony, Ordinance Pelajaran Colony, and this was to mencapai matlamat dalam usaha menyeragamkan kurikulum dan pemeriksaan yang meliputi peringkat rendah dan menengah. So this one is to again have a syllabus for Sabah's education system. And then in the end there was penyerta I think it's the end. In the end there was penyerta jawatan kuasa pelajaran 1956. So penyerta jawatan kuasa pelajaran 1956 was made by the Education Committee Jawatan Kuasa Pelajaran, and it was led by Dato' Abdul Razak Husin. He is the Minister of Education, and he is to see this Jawatan Kuasa, this committee, is to assess the education system again, see if they can make a new system. So what did they bring up? They mengemukakan teori pembentukan sistem pendidikan kebangsaan dengan hasrat memupuk integrasi dan perpaduan dalam kalangan rakyat pelbagai kaum. So they want to bring up a few things for the sake of integration. Integration means people can get used to each other more. Multiple states, multiple races can get used to each other more. Can be more with one another. And then also to make sure that people are united lah, perpaduan. So what they want is a uniform education system. Sistem persekolahan yang sama bagi kanak-kanak daripada semua bangsa. And then bahasa kebangsaan is bahasa pengantar utama. So they want BM and English to be they want BM and English to be the main language. However, other languages can still be in. Other races can have their own languages as well. And again, kandungan kurikulum yang seragam dan bercorak kebangsaan. So number 1, they want the system to be the same for everyone. Number 2, they want the syllabus to be the same for everyone, as well as it to be based on Tanah Melayu. And number 3, they want bahasa kebangsaan to be the main language of communication. They want bahasa Melayu and bahasa English to be the main language of communication. So in the end, they suggested that there will be sekolah umum rendah, there will be public primary schools which use BM, there will be sekolah jenis rendah which will use Chinese, English or Tamil. There will be Malay or English schools that will Malay or English is a must in all schools. However, sekolah jenis umum can also learn Chinese and Tamil. And then sekolah menengah kebangsaan menggunakan Melayu sebagai bahasa pengantar, manakala Inggeris menjadi mata pelajaran. So again, there will be schools that use Malay as the main language, and then there will be schools that will use Chinese, Tamil, or English as the main language. In all schools, you must learn Malay and English, and in secondary schools, Malay will be the main language, while English will only be a subject. So the last one is penubuhan parti politik. I really don't think I should be talking about this that much because we already went through it. In the first 2 pages. Yeah, there's not really many other additions, and the ones that are added are not as important. Like they added PPP, Parti Negara, they added Barip and BPS, and other than that, everything else is like we already know. Like PKMM is Melayu Raya, PKMS is also PKMS is Sarawak versus them not disagreeing with British. Like they don't want Charles Vinderbrook to give away Sarawak to British. API is Melayu Raya also, I think. API is more radical, and I think also Melayu Raya. And they use the slogan Merdeka dengan Darah. PPM is same with PKMS. UMNO is against Malayan Union. And then there's also PKML, which is for Sabah. MIC for Indians, but they work together with other races. Barip is for freedom, for fairness by British. Like they want British to be fair with Sabah. BPS is trying to get BPS is similar to Barip and not Barip. BPS is similar to PPM and PKMS. MCA is Chinese, similar to MIC. And then after that is IMP, which is for everyone to be together. PAS to be Islamic country. PPP is also similar to IMP, and Parti Negara is also similar to IMP. So yeah. So the last part. This is the last part. Yeah. How did we all work together to achieve independence? So the first sign of us working together is Putra AMCJA. If you remember when I mentioned it in the last chapter, I think it was Putra and AMCJA came together to make Perlembagaan Rakyat. Even though it was rejected, it showed that we are willing to work together. And then next is Persidangan Kebangsaan. So Persidangan Kebangsaan was led by Dato' Panglima Bukit Gantang, and in that conference, Persidangan means conference. They suggested a few ways for political parties to have everyone involved, like every race involved. So they are suggesting like ways for multiple parties to be involved, so everyone can be together. So it was joined by IMP, MIC, Persatuan Ceylonese Malaya, and Persatuan Eurasian Malaya. And they wanted elections, which we will eventually get. And then there's also Convention Kebangsaan. So this is conference, this is convention. So convention is also a conference, and then but it was organized by UMNO. So this conference was led by Dato' Panglima Abdul Gantang, Bukit Gantang, but this convention was organized by UMNO, which was by the time already under Tunku Abdul Rahman, because Dato' Onn Jaafar left UMNO by that time, and Tunku Abdul Rahman and MCA decided to work together. So this convention discusses about how Tanah Melayu will get independence, and it was joined by PAS, Persatuan Melayu Kelantan, and Persatuan Melayu Semenanjung. And they also agreed that there should be an election. And then number 4 is MIC, UMNO, and MCA formed Parti Perikatan, and they destroyed the elections. And their flag used to be a ship. This boat, this sail showed that the people are willing to go through challenges, kesediaan menempuh cabaran, and rintangan bagi mencapai kemerdekaan negara. So this flag became the scale